The story kicks off in an Eastern European country that's been completely leveled and turned into straight-up rubble. Among the wreckage, a seriously banged-up dude is just sitting there, clutching his hardware like his life depends on it. Losing way too much of that red juice from being peppered with holes, he barely has the strength to keep his hands steady. Holding a little stuffed bunny, a tiny girl walks up and begs the guy not to check out on her, but he barks at her to run away. Absolutely terrified by the whole vibe, the kid hesitates and freezes like a deer in headlights. Totally out of patience, the marksman demands she scrambles out of there right that second, warning her that sticking around will definitely get her a one-way ticket to the afterlife too. Spooked by his yelling, the girl turns on her heels and books it. She just keeps running in full panic mode, trying to get as far away from the danger zone as humanly possible. While the kid dips through the alleys, our banged-up guy stays leaning against the busted wall. Suddenly, he clocks that someone is rolling up and turns his head to lock in. The dead silence of the area is shattered by the echo of heavy boots. A guy rocking a trench coat strolls up to him without a care in the world. Flanked by a bunch of heavily armed goons, the silver-haired boss arrives looking like a whole VIP. Spotting his target, the boss calls the marksman by his street name Nightshade. Totally impressed, he points out that the guy really lives up to his hype as an absolute monster. The silver-haired dude is mind-blown, realizing that this one guy caused all this chaos solo. The whole spot is just littered with the bodies of goons who caught the ultimate LL during the crossfire. In the background, buildings are still going up in flames, showing just how much this city got wrecked. Nightshade gets an earful from his rival, who says a guy of his caliber would never choose to kick the bucket just for the thrill of it. Cocking his piece, the boss asks if the defeated guy has any epic last words. Covered in a red mess, the marksman just gives him this absolute look of pure mockery. Giving a slow thumbs down, our MC embraces his own end like an absolute boss. Without even flinching, he promises they'll bump into each other again in the underworld. A massive blast echoes through the alley, painting the walls with a fresh coat of red. Flash forward 17 years to a sketchy hideout where some guy is screaming his lungs out because he thinks he's getting played. This huge bald dude asks the kid if he seriously thinks he can just walk away from the jig at this point. Backed into a corner, the kid tries to backtrack, swearing up and down that they only agreed on a driving gig. With a smoke hanging out of his mouth, a second thug points out that the job literally is driving and asks what his deal is. Full on panicking, the youngster swears this is way above your average Uber ride. Crying his eyes out, he complains that he's to extract a pro cleaner straight out of an active crime scene. Getting annoyed by the waterworks, the bald guy smashes a golf club into the floor so hard he actually cracks the tile. The thugs make it crystal clear they are transporters, and they'll move any package as long as the cash clears. Brandishing a knife, the lackey warns the kid that he's gonna have to flatline him if he keeps whining. Out of nowhere, someone clamps a hand down hard on the armed guy's shoulder, totally killing his tough guy vibe. Caught totally off guard by the interruption, the thug turns his head, completely lost. Rocking a baseball cap, a young guy tells everyone to chill and offers to take the gig himself. Still pinned by the big guy, the terrified kid begs his buddy K not to get tangled up in this mess. K calms his boy down, totally sure that a top-tier pro wouldn't just go around unaliving people without a solid reason. Night falls over the massive, neon-lit skyscrapers of the big city. A mobster takes a permanent nap after catching a direct hit in a super fancy hallway. Whipping out their pieces, the guards start freaking out, yelling that they walked right into a trap. Another lackey tries to play human shield for the boss, but catches a sleeper dart right between the eyes. The rest of the crew is absolutely horrified watching their buddies drop like flies. Shaking his head in disbelief, one of the suits notices the holes punched straight through the thick wooden door behind him. Sweating bullets, he realizes the wood didn't do squat against high-caliber hardware. The trench coat guy kicks the door clear off its hinges and strides right into the office. Gripping a silence piece, the silver-haired pro steps into the room like he owns the place. Wasting zero time, the mob boss barks at his crew not to underestimate the intruder. To dodge the incoming lead rain, the marksman flips a heavy round table for cover. Trying to clip the invader, the bodyguards just start spraying and praying. Using his cover like a pro gamer, the assassin peeks out and drops two guards at the exact same time. As another lackey bites the dust, the last guy standing is just baffled at how the dude has actual aimbot. Keeping his piece locked on the target, the silver-haired guy gloats, saying it's easy to track the nasty stench of mobsters. After wrapping up the job, the pro casually holsters his hardware right in the middle of the wrecked office. He reloads his gear, casually pulling fresh mags right out of an ice bucket. The floor of the room has basically turned into a swimming pool of knocked-out goons. Standing at the door, the Jadaway driver Kai rolls up just in time to admire the aftermath. Freaking out, The kid throws his hands up in surrender the second the silver-haired dude points his piece at him. Shaking like a leaf, Key stammers out that he was only paid to handle the escape route. The marksman lowers his guard a bit and asks if he's the wheelman his partner called in. Breathing a massive sigh of relief for not getting blasted, the kid adjusts his cap and confirms he's the driver. The two peel out in their ride, cruising down the massive empty city avenues in the dead of night. Under the moonlight, the car is absolutely tearing down the streets. While the driver keeps his eyes peeled on the road, the marksman chills in the back seat. Glancing at the rearview mirror, the driver checks out the pro with a lot of curiosity. The guy catches him staring and asks what his problem is, instantly making the kid sweat. Trying to play it cool, Key mentions that being around a real deal pro is honestly pretty wild. Brushing off the compliment, the pro just keeps staring at the front seat, looking bored out of his mind. Hesitating a bit, the driver asks if he can shoot a quick question about the gig. Since the passenger doesn't tell him to shut up, Key mentions he walked through the first floor when he entered the building. Thinking about the bodies scattered everywhere, he asks if women and kids were on the hit list too. The silver-haired dude says no, but then casually drops that he only took them out so they wouldn't make a racket. Kay is absolutely floored hearing the excuse that the clean-up crew would handle it anyway, so dropping a few extras was no biggie. Gulping hard, the driver lets out a nervous laugh, realizing this passenger is way more twisted than the street legends claimed. Thinking of the guy by his street name, Funeral Flowers, Key realizes he's trapped in a car with a literal monster. Keeping the chat going, Key asks how the marksman even knows that nickname, saying he heard it from their boss. In the Western underworld, the top-tier cleaners get named after flowers, and getting sent the funeral flowers basically means your subscription to life is cancelled. Getting annoyed by the whole interview, the silver-haired guy mutters that the punk needs to mind his own business. But the kid just keeps pushing it, throwing out a wild guess that the scar on the pro's face must have come from a blade. The pro just sits there dead silent, hyper-focused on the sheer audacity of this driver. Playing philosopher, the kid states that there must be someone out there capable of actually scratching one of the legendary funeral flowers. In the back, the pro stays zipped, just taking in everything the kid is spouting. Through the mirror, Key's eyes get super dark and serious while he stays glued to the road. Touching his scar, the silver-haired dude gets a flashback of a guy who once went by the code name Belladonna. That specific plant is also known as nightshade and packs a ridiculously heavy neurotoxin. In flower language, it means a gift of the end, and this dude was basically the Grim Reaper in the flesh. He thinks about how that guy was dumb enough to go against the entire syndicate's rules just for one little girl. Because of that stunt, his old rival ended up bleeding out in the middle of that creepy alleyway. Snapping back to the present, Kai hits him with a smirk and casually mentions that the silver-haired guy put the Reaper down with his own hands. Officially out of patience, the pro aims his piece right at the kid and asks if he wants that story engraved on his tombstone. Faking a panic attack, the kid starts sweating and asks what the heck the guy is talking about. With zero chill, the silver-haired guy clicks off the safety, totally ready to blast the driver's head off. The pro actually praises his driving skills, saying that anti-kidnapping maneuver was way too slick for a random street punk. On top of that, he points out the kid isn't actually scared, since guys who are really panicking sweat in a very specific way. The pro gets nerdy, explaining that fear sweat smells absolutely rancid. Since he's not getting a whiff of that funky smell from the front seat, he figures the kid is totally chill about having a barrel pointed at him. Pressing the hardware forward, the mobster demands to know who the kid really is. Taking his shot, Key cranks the steering wheel all the way with everything he's got. Caught totally off guard by the crazy swerve, the silver-haired guy gets tossed around the back seat like a ragdoll. The car violently fishtails on the highway, sliding across the blacktop at crazy speeds. Acting fast, the driver slams on the brakes, totally locking up the tires. While the ride spins out of control, the pro screams his lungs out, asking what the heck this lunatic is doing. In the mirror, the kid is just rocking this dark, super focused look right in the face of disaster. The silver-haired guy's eyes go wide when he realizes there is zero chance they are avoiding this crash. With an absolute ear-shattering crunch, the car violently slams right into the metal highway barrier. Thanks to the massive impact, the pro gets launched right out of the flipping car. Skidding across the pavement, he somehow finds his footing and lands in a crouch. Absolutely boiling with rage over the setup, the silver-haired guy looks up and locks eyes with his new problem. Emerging right out of the crash smoke, Key leaps at him, kicking off a lightning-fast rush. The kid flashes these glowing red eyes and whips out a knife with an aggressively lethal stance. Moving fast, the mobster raises his heavy piece to blast the kid right out of the air. A sharp slash slices through the wind before he can even squeeze the trigger. With pinpoint accuracy, the driver smacks the side of the piece, totally knocking his aim off. Riled up by the strike, the pro clicks his tongue and takes a step back to dodge the edge. The metal body of the hardware takes the knife hit head on. Pieces of the gear literally shatter onto the pavement, leaving the silver-haired guy shook at the damage. Standing completely chill, Key gives him a quick lesson, saying the Desert Eagle is finicky and its side profile can't handle hard hits. The kid adds that it's the absolute perfect spot to jam the whole mechanism. The thug realizes this kid attacked the gun's action with basically superhuman precision in a split second. Stripped of his main toy, the silver-haired guy grinds his teeth, absolutely furious at the whole setup. Barking at the kid not to get cocky, the pro charges in hot, throwing the busted piece at him as a distraction. Dropping a curved blade right out of his sleeve, the guy sets up for a lethal close quarters combo. Without breaking a sweat, Key uses his bare hands to parry the attack like it's nothing. The two jump into a wild hand-to-hand brawl, with the kid perfectly blocking every single rapid-fire strike. The mobster takes a solid hit to the arm and realizes, in absolute horror, that his nerves just got scrambled. Exploiting the opening, our MC delivers a brutal straight punch right to the guy's face. Keeping the combo going, he viciously chops the dude right in the neck. Giving him zero time to breathe, the kid steps in and buries a nasty knee straight into the guy's gut. To wrap it up, Kai brings his hand down with maximum force and completely crushes the guy into the asphalt. Coughing up a ton of red stuff, the defeated guy realizes that wasn't just your standard street fight combo. He realizes with pure dread that every single hit was actively shutting down his nervous system. The internal damage is an exact match for the legendary belladonna toxin. Our hero looks down at the wrecked dude, radiating this dark, demonic energy right under the moonlight. Even while eating pavement, the pro talks trash, calling the kid a weirdo obsessed with smells and demands to know who he really is. Suddenly, the silver-haired guy's eyes bug out as he puts the pieces together and remembers that cursed old nickname. Our MC hits him with the sarcasm, asking if the guy finally caught on, adding that it took him way too long. Sweating bullets, the pro whispers in total denial that this is literally impossible. Smiling like a total menace, Key fires back, saying the pro sure talks a lot for a guy who fought like a complete coward. He brings up how his enemy only crawled out of the woodwork to land the final hit when he was already bleeding out in that alley. The mobster throws a fit, calling Cap and saying the Reaper should be in the dirt right there, but the kid calmly agrees that he did, in fact flatline. Flexing those glowing eyes, he casually mentions he bounced back from the afterlife for reasons he can't even explain. The loser is just totally mind-blown hearing this crazy Respawn story. Spotting his blade on the street, the silver-haired guy refuses to go out to something this ridiculous. Walking super slow, the MC heads toward the knife lying on the blacktop. With a quick toe flick, he pops the blade into the air and catches it smoothly with the same hand. The pro asks if the whole point of this crazy stunt is revenge, and Kay snaps back that honestly, it wouldn't be the worst idea. Right at that second, the image of that confused little girl's stuffed bunny flashes in his mind. Rocking an ice-cold, determined look, the kid confesses that he actually just needs to get something back. To pull that off, he declares he's gonna burn the faction's massive garden straight to the ground. Eaten up by rage, the silver-haired guy yells that soloing the entire guild is a pipe dream he'll never pull off. He warns Key that there are way more funeral flowers on the roster now, and some are even more busted than he used to be. Getting his neck brutally sliced, the mobster tries to get out one last warning that the kid won't change a damn thing flying solo. Ignoring the warning, our MC finishes the combo by taking the guy's head clean off the board, splashing the road with red. As the silver-haired guy's lifeless body drops to the pavement, the dust and the mess settle on the wrecked street. Looking down at the body, he tells the punk to enjoy the fireworks show straight from the underworld. Somewhere else entirely, in a super upscale boardroom, a bunch of big shots are chilling around a massive table. A really sharply dressed boss leans back in his chair, casually calling out the name Dahlia. In this super calm voice, he drops the bomb that their associate recently got taken off the census. Hearing that, the blonde woman shuts her mouth, letting the heaviness of the news sink in. Glancing sideways, the boss asks if she remembers who caused all that carnage back then. He explains that the guy who bit the dust is the exact same dude who flatlined her old mentor during that past civil war. Hearing those words, the woman gets hit with flashbacks of her own dark history out in the ruins. Trying to put the puzzle together, the boss wonders if the hit was pulled by Japanese authorities or if the Americans decided to crash the party. Thinking on it, he also throws out the idea that it might just be some random, wildcard player. Drumming his fingers on the table, the guy figures that the politics in their new Japanese turf are getting pretty spicy. The boss declares that some really annoying pests have started popping up in the area. To clean house, he orders Dahlia to call in the funeral flowers to pull the problem up by the roots. Walking down a busy street, the guy sets a strict deadline: the jig needs to be wrapped up in 30 days flat. On the flip side, Key is just deep in thought about how he spent his entire original life neck deep in a wrecked war zone. All alone in the rubble, the kid remembers he never even got the chance to know his folks. He was just another classic war orphan, rocking zero prospects for the future. But his whole reality flipped when this mysterious dude stepped right out of the smoke. Packing a piece, the suit gave the kid two choices: drop dead right there like a stray dog, or pick up the hardware and start dropping bodies to guarantee his own survival. Not even fully grasping how heavy the choice was, the kid just grabbed the bulky metal. Racking the slide like it was nothing, Key decided he'd rather stay breathing. Without missing a beat, he pulled the trigger, blasting the target with absolute zero chill. Back in boot camp, his coach would scream at him to never hesitate, warning that one slip up meant checking out early. Sprinting through the shooting range, the kid constantly heard the orders to never stop moving. Amidst all the gunfire, the young guy realized the funeral flowers weren't just your run of the Mill Street Jang. They totally bought into this grand mission of protecting the global order, no matter the cost. The Syndicate kept an eye on the whole globe, quietly erasing threats from the shadows. Their top priority targets were dictators tearing the world apart from the inside out. Cartel bosses and super lethal terrorists were also on their permanent cleanup list. Because of that, their hits stopped wars before they started, acting as a messed up but surgical way to save a ton of innocent lives. RM has handled his gigs with crazy speed and pure lethality. Functioning as a literal living weapon, he just followed orders for the sake of that so-called noble cause. Standing in a dark alley, the pro remembers the exact second his whole life fell apart, back when goons were hunting a rogue agent. Panting and roughed up, the MC was fighting just to stay on his feet in the shadows. The little girl notices her protector is sweating buckets, while he realizes he just betrayed his own syndicate after 20 years of loyalty. Kay figures out he inhaled some nasty nerve gas and his system is failing, knowing his clock is ticking fast. With his hands shaking completely out of control, the marksman accepts that he's about to meet his maker. Handing a note to the girl, he tells her to head to a safe house where a getaway driver will scoop her up. He warns the kid she has to fly solo to start a fresh life, silently asking himself why he even pulled a stunt this crazy. Gripping the paper super tight, the little one stays completely silent, processing the goodbye. Overwhelmed by the whole thing, she crushes the note in her hand, feeling totally helpless. Grabbing onto his jacket, she flat out refuses to leave without him, no matter what. With absolute determination, the kid demands to know exactly what she needs to do to save his life. Seeing her crazy bravery, Key realizes it was exactly this kind of wild card energy. This rock-solid stubbornness was the exact reason his perfectly programmed life completely derailed. A little while later, the sun comes up, shining on this busted, abandoned building in the middle of nowhere. Chilling on the floor surrounded by empty tiny bottles, our MC gets his health bar back thanks to atropine sulfate. That specific antitoxin stuff could only be found in incredibly tiny amounts inside regular over-the-counter eye drops. Waking up, he realizes he was on 1% HP and never would have been able to scavenge all those bottles by himself. Breathing a huge sigh of relief seeing his color come back, the girl rushes into the hideout. Staring at her muddy little shoes, the pro realizes she literally risked it all running around in a zone packed with enemies. Trying to make her hero feel better, she promises there's nobody left patrolling the block. Mind blown by her hustle, Key asks if she feels bad about wasting her one golden ticket out of there. Fearless as ever, she rejects the solo escape plan and begs him to keep being her bodyguard from here on out. Getting flustered by the request, the guy points out he's basically a human weapon and has zero clue how to be a family man. Bummed out by the rejection, the little girl gets sad, while he thinks about how his old self would have never put up with this drama. But putting his hand on her head, Key admits he couldn't live with himself owing a life debt to a little kid. Looking the girl right in the eyes, the pro decides to lock in a legit promise. He promises to watch her back until the day she's completely free, officially retiring from his run as a hitman. Super hyped, the kid accepts the first real, honest deal she's ever made in her life. Suddenly, the bedroom door gets kicked wide open and a teenage girl screams at her idiot brother to wake up. To the jump scare, our MC falls right out of bed and face plants hard onto the floor. Rubbing his head, he groans, still half asleep, remembering that 17 whole years have passed since his game over. Young Misaki yells that he's going to be late for high school, dragging Key right back to his present-day grind. Complaining about how impossible it is to wake him up, she waits impatiently while the guy promises he'll get dressed in a flash. Standing up, our hero thinks about how absolutely wild his new life is as an average high schooler. Staring her brother down, Misaki squints, saying he's been acting super sus lately. She points out he rolled in super late last night and his clothes smelled like a literal bonfire. Sweating bullets, Key mentally remembers having to torch the flipped car to scrub the evidence. Using a pretty scary tone, the girl asks if he's somehow getting tangled up with sketchy people again. Trying to play it off, Kay forces a laugh and lies, saying he was just chilling at a buddy's barbecue until the Ames. The girl thinks that's totally bizarre since he used to hate veggies, but the kid claims his taste buds flipped after he hit his head. In his mind, he rationalizes that the brain's reward center probably took some damage rewiring what he likes. The siblings just stand there in awkward silence for a second. Not caring enough to push it, Misaki orders him to hurry up and get downstairs, warning him that Mom says breakfast is getting cold. The second the door clicks shut, Kay lets out a massive sigh of relief, muttering to himself about how scary observant his sister is. Pacing around the room, he reflects that, so far, he's managed to fake a totally normal lifestyle perfectly. Looking at a family photo, the guy admits that, deep down, this whole setup still feels like a simulation. The kid questions why his consciousness, which checked out 17 years ago, somehow hijacked this specific body. Very carefully, he touches the picture of his new family sitting on the desk. Key is absolutely sure he didn't just overwrite the kid's existence, since the original owner's memories and feelings are still kicking around in his head. Tracing it back, he knows the kid took a nasty tumble down the stairs 10 days ago, but everything right before and after is a total blank. He wonders if the impact basically rebooted his past life memories, admitting the whole thing makes zero scientific sense. Suddenly, a sharp ping from his computer grabs the guy's attention. Sitting down at his setup, Key decides to put the existential crisis on hold, since he's got way bigger fish to fry right now. Rocking a super serious face, he leans back in the chair and stares holes into the monitor. Slipping his headset on, the kid hears someone confirm that the data extraction is finally done. On the other end of the Discord call, some anonymous guy complains that cracking the encryption on that thing was an absolute nightmare. Playing it cool, Key casually mentions that it was the gadget he snagged off Dahlia. We get a quick flashback to the moment the pro dropped the targets in that super fancy VIP room. Right next to a messy sleeper, the dead mobster's hand was clutching a vintage pocket watch. The silver piece was actually a stash spot for something way more valuable. The watch showed a tiny micro SD card hidden right in the gears. Looking smug, the MC praises his hacker buddy's speed, realizing hitting up the old contact list was a clutch move. The partner admits he was totally mind-blown getting a ping from him last week, considering he'd been off the grid for over a decade. He confesses he thought he was getting trolled until the news of Dahlia flatlining proved the legendary Nightshade was actually back. Having zero time for small talk, the kid demands the intel before answering any lore questions. The contact brings up how, 17 years ago, the pro broke protocol regarding a family hit and supposedly got taken out during the jig. Super curious, the hacker wants to know how a guy like him is still breathing and why he's picking a fight with the syndicate all over again. Cutting straight to the chase, he asks if this whole revenge tour is about a girl named Lilia. A flashback shows tiny Lilia being dragged away by a suit, dropping her stuffed bunny right after our hero supposedly bit the dust. The partner drops the lore, the garden scooped the kid up to use her as a political pawn. For the last 17 years, the girl has been locked up like a bird in a cage, acting as the poster child for the syndicate. With absolutely zero freedom, she's stuck living in the dark side of this messed up world. The informant spills the tea that there are nasty rumors about the top brass putting her through some seriously twisted stuff. Bringing it back to the present, the buddy asks if this whole killing spree is just to break the girl out of the garden's grip. Hearing that summary, Key's vibe gets noticeably darker through the webcam. The image of that little girl smiling so happily with a crusty piece of bread pops into his head, bright as day. Ice cold, our hero warns the guy that he doesn't need to understand the motives of a top-tier pro like him. Shutting the topic down entirely, he reminds him that the golden rule between them is to never ask stupid questions. The anonymous hacker stays quiet for a beat, just taking the verbal slap in the face. Clicking his mouse, the hacker just sighs and says the guy is as much of a stubborn jerk as he was back in the day. A notification sound pops, signaling the file transfer is finally complete. The screen pulls up a picture of a dark-haired high school girl looking super serious. Locked in, Kay scans the details and figures out the name of the next target Dahlia was planning to wipe off the map. When morning hits, things are super lively at this crazy expensive all-girls prep school. Students are strolling through the school gates, just chatting and hyping each other up. The girl from the dossier is walking by herself in the courtyard, totally turning heads wherever she goes. A few girls wave at her like super fans, saying hi and calling her by her name, Shido. Turning her head looking majestic as heck, she throws them a polite little smile. The second she looks away, the fans literally swoon, totally starstruck by her rich girl aura. The students keep whispering in the corners, just obsessed with how cool she is. Keeping a safe distance, Ki is straight up tracking her moves on his phone, flying under the radar with a basic baseball cap. His screen shows the full unredacted file, confirming this is Akari Shido. The background check drops the bomb that this schoolgirl is the sole heir to the biggest Yakuza family in all of Japan. Our hero does the math, confirming that this mob princess is target number 1 on the Garden's hit list. Thinking it over, he knows that right now, he's technically just an average high schooler trying to box with a global cartel of killers. This rival syndicate has a ridiculous amount of political and financial pull in multiple countries. On top of that, the group has an army of cleaners with basically superhuman stats. Looking at the girl's pick, Ki is fully aware he can't just run headfirst into these monsters without some serious backing. To hit his endgame, he plans to totally exploit this mob Harris's sketchy situation to get some perks. Flashing a villainous smirk, our hero decides to use her as the match to burn the garden straight to the ground. Keeping a solid buffer zone, Ki tails the girl as she walks through the upscale residential block. The kid instantly spots a guy in a suit acting as a bodyguard, shadowing the student from a few paces back. From his hiding spot, he jokes to himself that playing babysitter for a mafia boss's kid every single day must be a drag. Down a completely empty alley, the bodyguard blocks the path, and Kai hits him with a sarcastic sup. Cracking his knuckles, the suit complains about the rats sniffing around his boss and warns the kid he's in the wrong neighborhood. The guy looks at the teenager like he's a total joke, treating him like a punk who's probably never even held a piece in his life. With a dark smile, our MC drops a super sarcastic, "Thanks for the heads up, buddy." They stand off in the middle of the street while the vibe gets insanely heavy. Without dropping his chill posture, Ki warns him that he's about to make his grand return to the underground world of violence. The bodyguard shifts into a fighting stance, demanding to know who the punk works for and why he's stalking the girl. Super relaxed, the kid raises a hand and clarifies he wasn't exactly planning to bag the girl. Pissed off by the smart mouth, the suit warns him that he doesn't need him to be honest, because he's about to beat the answers out of him anyway. Taking advantage of the gawking too much, Ki throws a wild punch right at his face, sending the dude flying back before he can even blink. Sizing the guy up close, Ki instantly clocks that the suit has a boxing background. Absolutely raging over the cheap shot, the guard charges in, screaming at top speed to get his get back. He starts cussing the kid out mid-dash, winding up for a massive haymaker. The suit throws a lightning-fast jab, but our MC just glides out of the way like it was in slow motion. Catching him completely open, the kid grabs the guy's wrist with an iron grip. Giving him zero time to guard, Ki twists the suit's arm, completely shattering his balance. Shocked out of his mind, the guy realizes way too late that he just got absolutely handled by a teenager. With a blur of motion, our MC lands a pinpoint strike directly to the guy's neck. The hit is so nasty the bodyguard face plants onto the concrete, just groaning in pain. Looking down at the folded dude, the kid tells him to chill out and peacefully explains that he's not the bad guy here. Still seeing stars on the ground, the suit stays quiet, fighting for his life just to process how he got dropped so fast. Out of nowhere, the girl, Akari, marches into the alley demanding they break it up immediately. Seeing her walk into the crossfire, the downed guard panics and whispers his boss's name. She struts right up to both of them in the shady alley without showing a single drop of fear. Staring the kid down, Akari admits she has no clue who he is, but orders him to let Katajiri go right that second. Actually impressed by her guts, Ki thinks to himself that the mob princess definitely has that dog in her. He agrees to let the guy go, but only if the preppy student listens to his entire pitch. Keeping his boot on the guard, the kid casually invites her to grab some tea, which makes the suit absolutely furious at the disrespect. Keeping her cool under pressure, the girl narrows her eyes and does some quick math in her head. Turning around, she just orders our hero to follow her, skipping all the extra questions. A few minutes later, the squad peacefully rolls up to a way quieter, empty street. They duck into this super low, Ki calf tucked right around the corner. Sitting down, Ki compliments the aesthetic but points out it doesn't exactly scream, "Rich Mob Harris." Completely ignoring her bodyguard fuming in the background, Akari tells the kid to skip the filler and start talking. Looking classy as ever, the girl picks up her freshly poured cup of tea. Taking a sip, she says she's 100% sure he didn't just track her down for fun. Dropping the jokes, our hero states that his actual target is the hitman currently hunting her. Since both of them look stressed and stay quiet, Ki asks if they have any clue why there's a bounty on her head. He points out she wouldn't be walking around with a high tier guard if she wasn't completely aware she's in the crosshairs. But the kid drops a reality bomb, warning her that her glorified mall cop has zero chance of protecting her from the Chowka faction, leaving Akari shook. Our hero breaks it down: these guys are elite sweepers, and not even a fully armed Yakuza army could stop them. Blown by the threat level, the girl stares at the kid, trying to process just how deep this goes. She leans over the table and demands to know who he really is and how he knows all this top-secret lore. Not even fazed by the mob princess throwing her weight around, the kid keeps a totally deadpan look. Leaning back in his chair, Key clarifies he's not her buddy, but he's definitely the worst nightmare of the people trying to drop her. The kid offers to completely dismantle the Chowka faction, asking for nothing but a place to crash at her mansion for a bit. Pissed off by the absolute nerve, Katajiri slams the table, jumping up to cuss the kid out. Rocking a scary as hell glare, our hero tells the guard in an ice-cold voice not to do anything stupid. This suffocating, lethal aura just leaks out of Key, completely freezing the guard in his tracks. Sweating bullets, the guy shuts his mouth, realizing the insane power gap between them. Realizing he can't back up his tough talk, the guard slowly sits back down, totally defeated. Feeling the heavy vibe, Akari asks why on earth she should trust a single word coming out of his mouth. Right then, the kid brings up the absolute bloodbath that went down recently in the Yokohama district. He spills that the Chaka faction was the crew responsible for permanently retiring 3 mafia bosses and their goons. Katajiri starts full on panicking, since that specific massacre hadn't even leaked to the news yet. Adjusting his cap, Key figures the press got paid off and accurately details that the victims got shredded by heavy artillery. He explains that the MVP of that slaughter was a cleaner from the rival squad known as Dahlia. Absolutely mind blown, the guard yells, demanding to know how a random teenager got his hands on classified mob intel. Wasting no time, our hero clunks a silence piece right on the CAF table and casually mentions he's the one who flatlined that hitman. He tells the mob princess to use her police connections to run ballistics, proving it's the exact same piece used in the executions. To top it off, the kid reveals he also wiped out the clean-up crew that was sent to scrub the scene and dump the bodies. Not buying it for a second, Katajiri points a finger, accusing the kid of being the actual hitman who took out the directors. Resting his chin on his hand, Kay hits him with the sarcasm, asking if he'd seriously go through all this extra homework if she was his target. The Harris just stares at our hero, studying him with this deep, analyzing look while they talk. Standing up from her chair, Akari decides to actually bet on the kid's story, which sends her bodyguard into a total panic. Moving fast, she orders Katajiri to pull the car around right now so they can head back to the estate. Swallowing his pride, the suit just follows orders as the massive gates of the compound swing open at dusk. Once they are inside the mansion's insanely fancy office, you could literally cut the tension with a knife. Katajiri complains non-stop about how insane it is to let some random, sketchy kid just walk into their HQ. Ki pushes the door open and strolls in, complimenting how ridiculously decked out the Mafia Command Center is. Just casually walking around, the kid points at an antique vase in the hallway and asks if it's legit. Triggered by his absolute lack of manners, the guard snaps, demanding to know who gave him a hall pass to wander around. Totally ignoring the rant, our MC thinks out loud, noting that the base's security is actually garbage and terribly placed. He already mapped out all the sentries at the front gate and the patrol routes around the gardens. Plus, the kid managed to spot the one single guy slacking off on monitor duty in the security room. Absolutely floored by how accurate his tactical breakdown is, Katajiri stutters, unable to process how he scanned all of that. Looking at the girl, Key points out that the Kevlar vest she's hiding under her uniform won't do squat against armor-piercing rounds. The student is actually amazed that the new guy basically X-rayed her whole security setup in like 2 minutes. Flashing a highly dangerous look, the MC makes it super clear that the guys coming for her aren't your average street thugs. Meanwhile, down in the dark, gross sewer tunnels, someone is moving completely off the radar. This sketchy figure glides through the shadows without making a sound, closing in on the target. Gripping a nasty blade, the white-haired cleaner walks forward, just radiating absolute lethal psycho energy. Back at the mansion, Key strongly recommends the Mafia evacuates the whole building as fast as humanly possible. Rejecting the idea immediately, the guard yells, totally offended, refusing to take orders from some random teenager. Ice-cold and brutally honest, our hero states that regular mobsters will just die for nothing against this faction and only end up getting in his way. Grabbing the kid's jacket, Katajiri tells him to stop treating this like a game, since everyone's lives are literally on the line. Super chill, Akari orders her guard to follow the kid's instructions to the letter. Looking like an absolute boss, the Harris doubles down on the command, calling the guard by his name. Not happy about it at all, the suit lets go of the MC and decides to back his boss's play. Outside, the goons are confused, asking if they are really retreating, but Katajiri tells them to shut up, since it's an order from the top. Now sitting on the floor of the room, the guard confirms he sent everyone packing just like they asked. Gripping his baton super tight, he warns the kid that he's only letting him call the shots for now. standing there looking totally relaxed. Ki says that's awesome and drops a comment about how impressed he is that the boss trusts him this much. With her eyes closed, Akari admits she doesn't know the deep lore about the funeral flowers, but she's smart enough to know regular guards are useless here. Staring right at the kid, the student figures the best meta for dealing with monsters is sending another monster. Surprised she cracked the code, our MC asks what makes her think he's in that line of work. The girl replies that she's stood face to face with a top-tier pro before. She explains that the look in the kid's eyes during their little street brawl gave it away. Akari remembers that he had the exact same dead eyes as that hitman, hyper, focused on the present moment and literally nothing else. Tugging the brim of his cap, Ki feels a little awkward realizing his whole, normal kid, cover was that obvious. Leaning on the furniture, the student notes that his vibe had one tiny difference though. She says the kid's eyes didn't have that robotic emptiness of someone who only exists to drop bodies. Looking closer, Akari admits she saw a crazy intense fire burning behind his expression. The girl spotted deep, rooted hatred mixed with an unstoppable drive to hit his goal. She basically calls it a passion that borders on pure obsession. And because he actually showed that sliver of humanity, the heiress declares she's willing to bet on him. Tilting his head, our MC just takes the psychoanalysis in silence. Curious, Kai asks for the lore drop on this mystery hitman who supposedly had his exact same eyes. Akari thinks back to her dad and says she was right there when this old lady flatlined the boss of the Shido clan. Flipping the switch to serious mode, the kid demands to know exactly who this person was right now. The girl explains that the cleaner was this super classy old lady rocking a really friendly smile. She remembers the woman walking up to her dad like she was just an old buddy dropping by to say hi. Suddenly, the flashback shows the mafia's heavy hitters getting shredded in the worst way possible. Without dropping the grandma smile, the old lady sliced the throats of every single guard without a second thought. Pausing the story, our hero raises a hand and asks if by any chance her knife had a specific detail on it. An image of a red, stained blade flashes as he asks if the weapon had a red spider lily engraved on it. Confused, the student quickly asks how on earth he could know a detail that specific. With pure rage in his eyes, the kid realizes internally that the spider lily is definitely involved in this mess. He can barely wrap his head around the fact that this old lady is still active in the underworld after all this time. The clock ticks by agonizingly slow while the squad waits in total silence inside the room. Catching a super weird vibe, Akari breaks the silence, pointing out that something feels incredibly wrong. Instantly on guard, our hero asks what changed in the atmosphere. Drops of red start hitting the wooden floor out in the yard, while a voice calls out for a little boy. The old assassin lady just casually strolls into the garden looking majestic, asking if her prey is ready to chat. Bleeding out, Katajiri is fighting just to stay on his knees while dealing with insane amounts of pain. Looking at the lackey, the cleaner mentions the house is basically set up like a spider's web. She effortlessly spotted every single booby trap hidden all over the dark estate. Using a totally creepy tone, the old lady demands the guard spill the beans on who else is hiding in the house. Pulling out her golden needles, she drops a terrifying warning that she's more than happy to start carving him up. Sweating buckets, the security guy just groans in agony, not even having the HP to talk back. Getting right up in the wounded guy's face, the hitwoman keeps pressing for an answer. Taking advantage of the blind spot, Akari rushes in at top speed swinging a katana while her guard screams her name. Putting everything she has into it, the heiress goes for a direct strike to take the intruder's head off. Gasping for air after the crazy dash, the girl catches her breath while staying in a fighting stance. Panicking, Katajiri tells his boss to fall back, and she realizes he would never delay giving up info without a good reason. In the hallway, the old lady casually blocks the katana blade, using nothing but her metal skewers. The clash of the weapons creates this massive pressure wave, while the assassin tanks the hit like it's a joke. Super annoyed by the perfect parry, the student clicks her tongue, realizing she's completely outmatched. Dripping with malice, the old lady says being aggressive saves her a lot of walking. In a blur, a razor wire wraps right around Katajiri's throat, making the red stuff spray instantly. The student's eyes go wide, completely traumatized, watching her guard get choked out in front of her. Totally chill, the old cleaner admits she completely remembers the tiny heiress. She brings up the scared little kitten who watched everything go down through the crack in the furniture back in the day. Staring the girl down, the hitwoman compliments her glow up and points out she inherited her dead dad's exact eyes. Glaring with pure hatred, Akari listens to the old lady sicko say those eyes look absolutely delicious. Totally lost in the sauce, the cleaner flashes a crazy, bloodthirsty look in the dark. She unleashes a crazy flurry of fast attacks, forcing Akari to violently backstep just to stay alive. Walking forward like the Terminator, the old lady keeps laying down overwhelming pressure. Backed into a corner next to her bleeding guard, the student realizes her win condition is 0. Out of nowhere, a heavy footstep echoes in the wooden hallway, followed by an exhausted sigh. Walking up like it's just another Tuesday, Kay complains that the girl is supposed to act like an escort mission objective. This dark, crimson energy just starts pouring out of our MC as he scopes out the scene. Feeling the insane power level, the hitman gets hyped, realizing there was a hidden boss lurking in the house. Ready to throw down, the old lady drops into her fighting stance, gripping her sharp tools. In a flash, she chucks 3 golden needles that bury themselves deep into the wooden floorboards. Radiating pure destruction, the assassin jumps, winding up a fatal strike with everything she's got. Not even breaking a sweat, the kid keeps his completely bored expression right in the face of death. Our MC just strolls calmly down the hallway, completely ignoring the dust getting kicked up. Flexing a massive curved knife in his hand, Key walks dead straight toward the enemy. Watching Kid's terrifying aura, the heiress and the bodyguard gulp hard, completely spellbound. Watching the brawl in the hall, our hero stands like a brick wall between the old killer and her targets. In seconds, the assassin realizes he's not just some edgy teen and actually uses highly practical combat tech. As a golden rule, those fighting styles teach you to never throw up a standard block against a guy with a knife. The logic behind it is pretty basic when you're talking about real, life street fights. It's physically impossible to block blades barehanded without risking getting a major artery sliced open. So, the fighter actually has to drop their guard on purpose to bait an opening. By doing that, he basically dares the opponent to go for a direct thrust to the chest or throat. Capitalizing on the enemy getting greedy, you just counter with an absolute devastating, pinpoint strike. Thinking about all that, the old lady gets sarcastic, saying knowing the theory is way different than actually pulling it off. Facing the armed grandma, Key just stands there in the dark looking completely open. Adjusting her grip, the cleaner is 100% sure he's just waiting for her to slip up so he can counter. Playing it super safe to handle the situation, the kid tosses his own baseball cap straight into the air. Caught totally off guard by the random move, the assassin's eyes go wide, completely failing the vibe check on the distraction. In the shadows, the only thing popping is the menacing red glow of the kid's eyes. Wasting 0 frames, our MC attacks with surreal speed, blitzing right at the enemy. With a crazy jump, he throws a fast overhead strike meant to completely crush her. Moving fast, the old lady backsteps, dodging the heavy hit as the kid lands on the floorboards. Looking at the grandma, Kia complains, sounding annoyed, that he honestly thought he could cheese her with that cheap trick. Impressed by his nerve, the assassin thinks it's awesome that the kid actually had the guts to strike first. But then she notices a much more dangerous detail when she checks the heavy hit she just dodged. Standing down the hall, the hitwoman realizes it's been a hot minute since she boxed with a Silat practitioner. The kid had perfectly targeted her fibular nerve, which is the textbook way to completely dead leg someone. Hyped that she figured out so fast, our hero praises the old lady for recognizing his build instantly. Triggered by his snarky tone, she admits that his whole attitude reminds her of a really annoying guy. The old lady gets a flashback to when she stepped back from field work 2 decades ago to become a coach for the syndicate. In an old sparring session, a sharp blade gets smoothly deflected with this crazy fluid motion. The younger version of the assassin was teaching that this specific tech doesn't rely on brute strength, but on riding the momentum. Showing how it's done, she instructed the rookie to just let the enemy's weapon naturally slide right past him. Watching the lesson up close, the student just tracked his teacher's footwork without saying a single word. Out of patience, the mentor warns him she's going to keep coming at him since lecturing isn't working. Pinned down with a blade right at his throat, the rookie swears he totally gets the core concept of the move. Keeps the kid completely a lockdown at knife point, showing 0 mercy. Flashing a totally demonic look, the student eagerly begs the old lady to teach him the next combo immediately. Back then, the woman realized in absolute terror that she was dealing with a monster who could copy anything just by watching. By the very next morning, she quit her teaching gig and went back to active duty, reclaiming her funeral flower street name. Staring at her trademark spider lily blade, she knew she had to go grind in real combat to keep her skills sharp. Under the full moon, the cleaner promised to perfect her actual dance of Demise no matter what. Back in the present, the old lady rushes in with her hardware, absolutely thirsty for some red. She charges straight at our MC, kicking up dust all over the mansion's wooden hallway. Playing it cool, Kai randomly confesses that he actually didn't hate his old coach that much. Caught completely off guard by the lore drop, the hitman stutters for a split second, actually breaking her sprint. The kid recites her own old advice about crushing the enemy's willpower before you pierce their heart. Hearing her own quotes from way back, the cleaner's eyes practically pop out of her skull in shock. Completely shook, she whispers that this is literally impossible. In that exact second, Our hero charges in with pure rage, blasting this terrifying red aura all over the room. In a crazy clash, the assassin burns all her stamina trying to parry the kid's heavy strike. Thanks to a fatal slip-up, Kai ends up taking a fast slash to the chest, and the red stuff sprays into the air. Watching from the sidelines, Akari and the guard start panicking, while the old lady mentally celebrates the W. Because the block was so stupidly heavy, one of the knives gets sent flying and stabs right into the hardwood floor. Gripping her red weapon super tight, the hitman gets ready to keep the combo going. To dodge our hero's counter, the old lady bends over backward in a Matrix-style dodge. Hyper-focused on the fight, the kid tracks her weird movements closely. With a rubber band backflip, the woman screams and creates distance like an absolute acrobat. She keeps spinning and sliding across the room until she's fully out of the danger zone. Looking confident, Kai claps for her agility, saying the legendary Ivy definitely hasn't lost her touch. All of that crazy mobility is only possible because she was born with hypermobile joints and super stretchy tendons. That broken body mechanic was always Ivy's signature cheat code in the underground. Sticking the landing perfectly, the old lady plants her feet, keeping the knife ready for round 2. On the other side of the hall, she finally realizes she is staring at her dead guildmate, Nightshade. Full of swagger, the kid just confirms the username and asks what she's gonna do about it. The veteran killer goes totally mute, breaking her brain trying to process the absolute glitch in reality she just heard. Throwing logic out the window, she tries to figure out how her dead student respawned in a teenager's body. But her killer instincts start screaming, telling her to ignore the plot holes and focus on the boss fight. Staring at the glowing red demon kid, she decides to risk it all. Going totally off the deep end, the old lady figures she finally found the white whale she's been grinding to beat all these years. Stomping the floorboards so hard they crack, the assassin gets a massive speed boost for her ultimate attack. A whirlwind of purple aura explodes out of her as she warns him her DPS is way higher than it used to be. Wrapped in this crazy energy, the woman tells her rival to get a front row seat to her true ultimate dance. Without hesitating for a single frame, she dashes in a straight line, cutting through the hallway air with pure malice. In an insane flex, Key steps up and parries her weapon, blocking the edge with his bare hands. The woman's killer aura wraps around the kid as she unleashes Ivy's terrifying ultimate move, the Dance of Demise. Seeing that visual glitch of an attack, Akari and the guard freak out, having no clue what kind of broken skill that is. Staying frosty under pressure, our MC tells his squad not to fall for the weapon's crazy fake-out animations. His eyes purely on the real blade, Key uses his bare fists to deflect every single wild strike of the combo. Blown by the invisible speed of the brawl, the audience's jaws hit the floor watching the kid's bare-handed blocks. From a distance, the Harris analyzes the impossible fight and is amazed by the parries, but she knows they aren't out of the woods yet. Deflecting every lightning fast rush in the middle of the room, our MC uses his glowing hands to bat the lethal weapon away. Annoyed with his own lag, Key thinks to himself that he never would have let this boomer even touch him if he was in his old body. Suddenly, the kid's eyes go wide, realizing the attack pattern just got a lot more toxic. Knowing his enemy's build, he realizes the red spider lilies have a poison buff, so of course she'd hide a cheap trick in the combo. With an evil smirk, the cleaner tells him to relax, spoiling the surprise that the toxin only causes muscle paralysis. The visual of the death flower pops up as the poison debuff starts nerfing our hero's agility. Decapitalizing on the lag spike, the old lady swings with insane rage, declaring she's the one who's gonna send him to the Shadow Realm. Nerfed by the poison, the kid feels his muscles giving out fast and ends up stumbling backward, looking rough. Completely lost in the sauce, the old lady sees the perfect opening and declares his game is officially over. After dumping all the brutal DPS from her famous Dance of Demise, the enemy lines up the finisher. Charging up this massive purple aura, the woman readies a guaranteed one-hit KO meant to end him right there. With a huge leap, she launches herself at the stunned kid to put a hole straight through his chest. An absolute nuke of a clash hits our hero, sending a shockwave ripping through the entire mansion hallway. Flexing a look of pure crazy victory, the assassin grandma celebrates securing the bag. But in an insane reverse, Key uses the momentum of her own attack to perfectly guide the fatal blade upward. Completely shook by the impossible parry, the veteran cleaner's eyes bug out and her jaw drops. Standing over the paralyzed assassin, our MC flashes his glowing red eyes, proving he's still the absolute raid boss here. Fully paralyzed by the plot twist, the old hitwoman chokes as she feels this heavy red energy hovering right over her. In a brutal move, our hero grabs her by the neck with a crazy grip, making the red stuff spray everywhere. Giving her 0 frames to block, Key slams the old lady straight into the hardwood, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. The assassin coughs up red on the floor, totally dumbfounded by the kid's impossible stats and speed. Because of the insane slam, her toxic dagger slips right out of her hand and drops toward the floor. Moving like a blur, the kid snags the poisoned blade right out of the air before it even hits the wood. Without hesitating for a microsecond, he gives the cleaner a taste of her own steel right in the chest. The old lady's eyes go wide as the red liquid spills out of her mouth, realizing she just hit 0 HP. Looking down at the folded enemy, our hero coldly states that, apparently, she still hasn't leveled up enough to beat him. Rocking a shadowy look, the kid promises he'll rematch his old coach whenever they bump into each other in the afterlife. Accepting her L peacefully, the assassin says she'll be waiting for him by the River of the Fallen. Looking at the body, he mutters that blooming in bright red is actually a pretty epic way to go out. In the background, Akari and the guard watch the aftermath of the crazy boss fight, completely paralyzed by what just went down. Suddenly, our MC loses his balance and his legs start giving out right in the middle of the room. Sweating buckets, he breathes super heavy, feeling the poison debuff and 0 stamina catching up to him. Panicking hard, Katajiri asks if the kid is okay and if the old lady's knife poisoned him. Completely out of breath, Ki admits his HP is flashing red and that he only delayed the poison's tick damage by controlling his breathing. This tactical breathing tech is heavily used by Black Ops to keep their chill in crazy situations. By doing that, the kid slowed his heart rate to nerf the poison, but the guard offers to call in a black market doc ASAP. Adjusting his cap, our hero turns down the help, explaining that a poison main always keeps the antidote in their inventory. Looting the enemy's drop, he finds the cure, but instantly freezes when he notices a detail, prompting the guard to ask what's up. Holding up a vintage watch identical to the one from the previous hit, the kid announces he just found the next quest item. Staring at the gold piece, he is 100% sure he's going to crack the code behind this whole mess. The Harris understands how deep this goes and asks out loud who exactly wants her out of the picture, and why. A little while later, the night is super quiet over the massive syndicate compound, far away from all the chaos. Inside the safe room, the bodyguard is pulling a stressful night watch while recovering from the crazy brawl. A mechit is sitting open on the floor with bandages and stims scattered everywhere. The student is carefully patching up her loyal guard, wrapping his busted arm up tight. Finishing the wrap job looking super focused, the girl breathes a sigh of relief and says that'll do for now. Super stressed, Katajiri asks the boss took any damage and begs her to just pull the plug on this whole operation. The guard gets flashbacks to the brutal hallway fight and admits he finally understands the real threat level. Thinking about the literal Annie moves he saw, the guy straight up states the kid is definitely not human. That clash of absolute titans is on a completely different server than the usual gang wars the Yakuza deals with. Gripping his injured hand in anger, the suit is super depressed that he doesn't have the stats to protect the girl. Because of that, he warns her the aggro is still on them and swears he'll never let the old boss's kid get taken out by those beasts. Dropping to his knees, the guard begs the girl to log out of the crime world and promises he'll solo the faction's problems himself. Listening to his desperate plea, the girl hears him beg her to lay low in a secure bunker until the heat dies down. Thinking it over, Akari actually considers the escape route and admits to herself that running away is the smartest play here. Suddenly, our hero walks into the room holding a laptop, and Katajiri freaks out, asking when he even spawned in. Totally ignoring the guard's jump scare, the kid just stares at them with this super serious, unreadable poker face. Catching the heavy vibe, the Harris turns her head, fully locked in to hear what the pro has to say. Cutting the filler, Ki tells her she's not just some innocent schoolgirl, reminding her that the boss Shido's blood is in her veins. He breaks it down that the gang's chaotic future is basically hard-coded into her, whether she wants to play the game or not. That dark legacy is like an uncurable debuff that'll track her to the edge of the map, no matter where she tries to camp. Pissed off that the kid is sticking his nose in, the guard yells, telling him to stop acting like he knows the boss's life. Tuning out the raging guard, our MC lifts the laptop and calmly announces he just doxed the guy who ordered the hit. The crazy info drop leaves the guard totally speechless while the student processes the leak. The kid explains he forwarded the gold watch's data to his hacker buddy for a speedrun decryption. Ice cold, he asks if the duo wants to see the face of the rat who hired the funeral flowers to take out her dad. Holding her ground on the floor, the boss orders the kid to stop teasing and drop the receipts. Following orders, our hero flips the laptop around, exposing the evidence on the bright screen. The file pulls up a pic of the Shido clan's right-hand executive, and Ki confirms they definitely know Messiah Kuroki. The guard goes into full panic mode and screams, refusing to believe it, hoping this is just a terrible troll. Flashing a dark look, the student remembers her dad took the traitor in, and he climbed the ranks ridiculously fast. The dossier highlights that the guy has terrifying stats when it comes to managing the clan's black market hustles. The dude's main gig was running massive underground casinos and literal deathmatch arenas. printing infinite dirty money for the faction. It was only a matter of time before he became a top-tier boss. Analyzing the guy's greed, Key figures that patiently grinding for the top spot just wasn't fast enough for him. Our hero exposes that the traitor partied up with cleaners like Ivy and Dahlia, both heavy hitters from the Garden. Using that lethal alliance, Kuroki orchestrated the server wipe of the old boss and the Yakuza's top brass. To make sure there were zero loose ends on his run to the top, he also put a bounty on the Harris. The traitor's ultimate endgame is stealing the mob crown and merging the whole country's underworld under his absolute control. As a payout for the backstab, the Shido clan would basically become a puppet org working for the Garden's massive empire. Flashing those bright eyes, Key states his only objective here is to totally ruin the assassin faction's master plan. Lowering the laptop, the kid stares at the student and confidently asks what her next move is. Challenging the mob princess, our MC asks if she's still gonna log out and run away like a coward. Faced with this massive choice, the girl puts her hands on the floor and starts standing up without a word. Turning her face toward the window, Akari tells the kid to stop talking so much trash. Terrified by the girl's choice, Katajiri screams in panic, begging her not to join this lobby. Appreciating her guard's loyalty, she makes it clear that keeping her head down and running away after finding out who ended her parents would be absolute garbage behavior. Radiating this majestic blue aura, the Harris declares that picking the coward's route will never be part of the Shido clan's lore. Watching his boss's unbreakable resolve, the guard grits his teeth, totally moved by the weight of her decision. Happy with her answer, the Respond Hitman realizes she's finally locked in. Full of confidence, the student admits she honestly never even considered dodging the fight for a single second. Looking at her massive, expensive estate through the glass, she admits she knows all this wealth wasn't grinded out legitimately. Akari knows her hands aren't clean since she was raised by her dad, and she accepts whatever karma comes her way, but she absolutely refuses to hand the gang over to some cowardly rat. Our hero flashes a tiny, satisfied smirk seeing the girl's absolute fearless energy. Walking toward the door, the kid asks her to just call him Key, since she still doesn't know his real gamertag. He clarifies it's not about a lack of trust, but points out it's way safer for both of them to ignore lore that doesn't matter. Reaching her hand out, the Harris decides to officially hire him as the heavy artillery to take down Kuroki. She declares that his payout for the gig will be exactly what he wants: the complete destruction of the Garden. Super confident, the student promises to bet the entire Shido clan's bank account to back him up on this quest. Hearing the offer, the kid looks highly interested and super happy with the terms. Key calculates the massive intel network and the ridiculous financial backing the mafia actually has. Plus, he factors in the sketchy VIPy connections the faction has in politics and big business. Locked in, the kid figures there is literally no better support build to help him crush his enemies. With a firm handshake, our MC accepts the deal and officially locks in the ultimate duo. The late night is super quiet over the massive neon skyscrapers of the sprawling city. Inside a ridiculously expensive penthouse, Kuroki is sipping a drink, annoyed that the old lady assassin hasn't checked in yet. Right then, a dude in a hoodie walks into the room asking the exec what he thinks is going on. This mystery guy is Campanula, another one of the rival faction's top-tier sweepers. Keeping a totally blank face, he listens to the traitor complain, looking bored out of his mind. The exec keeps pushing it, wanting to know if his partner hasn't heard any street rumors about the grandma going ghost. Brushing the whole thing off, the kid claps back sarcastically that he's not getting paid to babysit a boomer. Campanula guesses the old lady is probably throwing a fit over being asked to target a high schooler, showing how arrogant she is. A glass shatters across the room, giving the blonde kid a jump scare mid-conversation. Boiling with rage, Kuroki tells the kid to cut the crap and guesses the woman must have flatlined in a gutter somewhere just like Dahlia. The suit complains that the faction is hyped up as the most lethal hitters on Earth, but they're looking like absolute frauds right now. He tries to keep ranting and dropping cuss words, but he gets violently muted. In a literal split second, the hitman teleports behind the suit, pinning him to the wall and choking the life out of him. Sweating bullets, the traitor goes into full panic, unable to comprehend how the guy moved with glitch, like speed. With his eyes glowing in the dark, the kid warns him not to get it twisted, reminding him they are only carrying him for the syndicate's goals. The pressing a blade right against the guy's throat, the blonde hitman makes it clear the funeral flowers aren't anyone's errand boys. Terrified, Kuroki apologizes instantly while the kid pulls the knife away, telling him to watch his mouth. After dropping the fatal warning, the assassin turns his back and peacefully strolls across the room. Standing in the middle of the heady out, the blonde kid whispers calmly that everything is going exactly according to plan. Panning heavily from the chokehold, the exec agrees that the schoolgirl staying alive won't actually brick their strat. He flexes, reminding the kid that all the annoying OG members of the gang have already been successfully deleted. Staring out at the glowing city, the trader declares the gang is basically his now, and he'll use it to run the server. With a psycho smirk, the blonde sniper adds that it'll all be served up on a silver platter for the glorious garden. 2 days fly by and nighttime hits the crowded city streets. Inside a super exclusive underground casino, whales are screaming in hype, dropping bets across the tables. Chips are flying everywhere as the gamblers drop insane amounts of cash, trying to multiply their bags. Smiling billionaires flanked by gorgeous models are just flexing their massive wallets in the golden VIP room. Right then, a mysterious woman struts into the lobby looking like $1,000,000, getting the absolute royal treatment from the staff. Akari rolls and looking stunning in a white fit, closely guarded by Ki and Katajiri rocking high-end suits. Keeping a solid stance, our guy escorts the boss while basically using eagle vision to scan the crowd. Staring at the massive doors to the VIP section, the kid figures it's time to crash the trader's little party. Radiating absolute danger, our hero knows this is ground zero for wiping the enemy team off the map. Slot machines are flashing like crazy in the background while the insane master plan goes live. A casino dealer expertly shuffles a deck, setting up the next round at the high roller table. Nearby, a bunch of rich dudes are just sipping drinks and chilling, completely clueless about the boss fight that just walked in. The student walks through the floor with her chin up, pulling aggro from everyone in the room. A bunch of guests spot the girl and start whispering, totally obsessed with how she looks. One of the gamblers thinks it's super weird to see someone that young in a place like this and racks his brain, trying to ID her. Sweating nervously, Katajiri whispers that their squad is pulling way too much aggro inside enemy territory. With a sarcastic smirk, Ki promises that all this hype is going exactly according to his script. A quick flashback shows the clan's old dojo during their super tense strategy meeting. Back then, the guard heard our hero's strat and absolutely lost his mind at how insane it was. Smashing the wooden table, the guard cussed the kid out, thinking the plan was pure trolling. He refused to let the Harris literally walk into the enemy spawn, but Ki insisted it was the only way to save the guild. Stressed out, the suit argued that if the goal was just to take the traitor out, the kid should go solo him. Keeping his cool, our MC coldly asked what the guard thought would happen to the gang once the boss dropped. Kai explained that dropping the leader would trigger a massive civil war that would destroy the clan from the inside. Realizing that tactical breakdown was 100% accurate, the guard swallowed hard, knowing they had zero other options. Our hero kept the logic going, asking what would happen if the rightful heir claimed the traitor's head herself. Looking super serious, the student realized that making a move like that would show everyone who the real boss is. Ki guaranteed that if she stepped up to the plate, the clan's army would back her with absolute loyalty. Totally locked in, the girl cut the chatter and ordered her guard to call a luxury boutique. Radiating pure confidence, she demanded they order the perfect outfit for the biggest night of her life. Watching his partner's boss level energy, the kid flashed an approving smirk, really respecting her hustle. Snapping back to the casino, the massive doors to the restricted section stay shut tight, heavily guarded by the bouncers. Inside, one of the goons speed walks over to the boss and whispers the alert that the intruders have breached the lobby. The trader's eyes go wide, shook to his core hearing that the young Harris is casually strolling around the lower floor. Clicking his tongue in absolute rage, the exec grips his glass, furious to find out the girl didn't catch a game over. Chilling on the couch, the blonde hitman thinks the whole thing is hilarious and asks if he should go downstairs and flatline her right now. The boss shoots the idea down instantly, warning that dropping a body would tank the reviews of his precious casino. Trying to keep his cool, he orders the goons to treat the girl like a regular whale for the time being. Meanwhile, the vibe on the luxury casino floor starts getting heavier and super tense. Intimidating the bouncers at the locked doors, Katajiri talks trash, saying the coward Kuroki doesn't even have the guts to show his face. Scanning the room, Ki figures they need to bait the boss out into the open first. Focused on the mission, the Harris confidently strolls over to the action. She casually announces that throwing away some cash sounds like a fun side quest. The student makes a beeline straight for one of the most exclusive blackjack tables. The squad steps up to the center of the action, basically making everyone in the room stop and stare. Moving quick, the pit boss cuts the girl off, super politely apologizing for the interruption. The guy professionally explains that the absolute minimum buy-in for this table is 1,000,000 yen. Without missing a beat, our hero slams a heavy briefcase onto the table. The loud clack pops the case open, revealing it's absolutely stuffed to the brim with ultra, high-value chips. In seconds, massive towers of casino currency are stacked right in front of them. The girl claps back that she doesn't care at all, since she's not interested in playing in the kiddie pool. Absolutely stunned by the flex, the dealer apologizes profusely and clears her to play. Prepping the round, the dealer shuffles the deck with some seriously clean mechanics. He slides the first card across the felt, wishing the new VIP good luck. An hour flies by in this high-stress environment, and the crowd starts sweating just watching the game. The dealer is currently looking insanely nervous, tracking how the rounds are going. On the flip side, Akari is a total ice queen, locked in purely on her cards. The girls' chip stack has grown to an absurd height, and a massive crowd of players has gathered around to watch the carry. Sweating bullets, the dealer announces no more bets. The student just stares at the felt, waiting for the final reveal. The tension completely breaks the dealer, who starts breathing heavy, panicking hard. With shaking fingers, he flips the house's cards, showing the numbers to the whole crowd. Pulling one last card from the shoe, the guy is mentally praying to RNG to save him. He flips the final card, going into absolute panic mode at the total. The stress is so high the poor guy's hands literally lose all their strength. The house busts over the limit, confirming the dealer caught a massive, unavoidable L. Completely shook, the dealer announces the guest wins, and the crowd absolutely loses their minds over her win streak. The guard figures she has to be using hacks, while Key watches the scene with a super shady look. The truth is, blackjack isn't just about RNG. There's the legendary strat of card counting. That mythical tech calculates the odds of the round by tracking every single card that hits the discard pile. People who master that math can completely drain the massive casinos in Vegas. But what the kid is pulling off right now goes way beyond any gambling myth. With absolute galaxy brain processing, the hitman memorizes every single card the millisecond it hits the table. For every new card, his brain runs the numbers in a fraction of a second. He instantly calculates the perfect meta play and taps the side of his watch. The glare on the screen relays the exact moves to his partner via light flashes. For a guy trained to memorize escape routes and track unpredictable enemies in real time, this is literally a tutorial level. Compared to tracking ammo counts and wind direction in a chaotic war zone, counting cards is an absolute joke. RMC considers this hyper-fast mental math to be basically a walk in the park. Back to the game, the Harris pushes a ridiculous mountain of chips straight to the center. Full of swagger, she warns them the game is far from over and demands the dealer spin up the next round. The employee completely freezes in terror, looking at that impossible bet. The guy's legs turn to jelly, knowing that if he loses any more of the house's money, the bosses are going to end him. Out of nowhere, a super sarcastic voice echoes through the room, complaining that royalty should really RSVP before dropping in. Turning her head calmly, the girl spots the guy and says it's been a minute since they last crossed paths. Walking up with his goons, Kuroki uses irony, claiming he would have rolled out the red carpet if he knew she was coming. The traitor flashes a fake smile, trying to assert dominance inside his own lobby. Super annoyed by the act, the Harris tells the suit to spare her the garbage acting. The boss glances sideways and notices the absurd amount of money stacked on the table. Slow clapping, he congratulates the girl on her RNG and offers to cash her out right now if she decides to leave. Pulling a fat stack of bills out of his suit, he holds it out like a pity prize. Looking down on her, the guy suggests she use the cash to buy a nice souvenir for her friends. Rejecting the bribe, the student claps back, saying the rat hiding in her dad's house sure got fat. The direct disrespect absolutely shatters the traitor's ego, and he can't even hide the vein popping out of his forehead. With a lethal glare, Akari asks if he's playing king while getting carried by his florist buddies. The obvious call out to the assassin syndicate makes the exec's face drop into pure rage. All around them, the regular gamblers are super confused by the dialogue, having zero clue what the lore is. Done playing games, Kuroki drops a straight-up death threat, telling the princess to stop testing him. Hearing the warning, the student just nods and gracefully stands up from her VIP chair. Dripping with attitude, she ends the session, saying she was getting pretty bored of card games anyway. Holding her ground, the girl decides she'd rather try out the main event this place is famous for. The traitor goes dead silent, calculating exactly what the girl just challenged him to. Narrowing his eyes, the boss realizes she's talking about the legendary Crimson Cage. That fatal attraction is an underground, no-rules fight club located in the basement levels of the casino. Kuroki breaks down the ruleless, they each pick a champion to enter the arena, and they both drop their bets. Without Kari wagers the entire mafia empire she inherited from her dad, plus her own life. In exchange, she demands the suit put the deed to this entire massive casino on the line. The insane stakes floor everyone in the room, since this brutal deathmatch will decide the fate of the entire clan. Backed into a corner, the suit sweats bullets, realizing his rep will be permanently deleted if he dodges the 1v1 now. Exploiting the guy's hesitation, the student flashes a mocking smirk and asks if he's planning to rage quit. The taunt is super effective, and the traitor grinds his teeth hard, literally swallowing his rage. Completely out of options, the suit glares at the girl and says this little game actually sounds pretty fun. Getting right up in the Harris's face, the exec accepts the bet, calling her an annoying brat. Throughout the whole standoff, our hero stays totally quiet, just watching his partner's back. Seeing the enemy swallow the bait hook, line, and sinker, Key flashes a dark smirk, incredibly satisfied. The massive doors to the VIP restricted zone stay locked tight, waiting for the deathmatch to kick off. Inside, the blonde hitman is watching the whole thing go down on giant monitors with his feet kicked up on the desk. The security feed shows a live stream of Kuroki staring down Akari in the middle of the casino. Key keeps a super serious, focused look, analyzing every single micro movement the enemy makes. Watching the stream, Campanula cracks a twisted smile, deciding this whole setup looks insanely entertaining. Finally, the double doors of the lobby swing wide open, revealing the path to the secret underground ring. A dark, creepy hallway waits for the challengers heading toward the illegal fight pit. The crowd goes absolutely wild, screaming in pure hype as the brutal tournament opens up. The stage lights suddenly snap on, lighting up the fighting space enclosed by heavy glass walls. Super hyped, the announcer welcomes all the degenerates to the terrifying Crimson Cage. Gripping the mic, he hypes the crowd, saying they managed to set up an insane surprise match to get things heated. The hype man points at the arena and promises the VIPs in the crowd pick the absolute best day to log in. Without missing a beat, he reveals the fighter already waiting inside the red zone of the ring. A bald guy with ridiculous, unnatural muscles is warming up by violently smashing his own fists together. The announcer screams, introducing the undisputed champion, the absolute tank known to everyone as the Smasher, Takashi Kinju. On the flip side, Key peacefully strolls toward the center of the arena still wearing his suit. The host reveals the new challenger doesn't even have a track record and is literally just some random guy going by Kaya. In the stands, the gamblers start laughing and memeing on the skinny kid, betting he won't even last 60 seconds. The hype man adds that the champ is a combat carrot main who has literally sent every single opponent to the ICU. Stressing over the massive stat difference, Katajiri asks the boss if the kid actually stands a chance against that tank. He admits he knows the kid is busted, but he's still terrified of the matchup. Exhaling with his eyes half closed, our hero calmly mutters that this guy isn't your standard brawler. The ref drops the rules: no weapons or firearms allowed, but anything goes when it comes to throwing hands. For staring at the young guy in the suit, the mountain of meat flashes a demonic, arrogant smile. Key just stands there in his starting pose, showing zero emotion while staring down the juggernaut. With the stage set, the announcer throws his hand up and screams, officially starting the boss fight. Instantly, the brute rushes in and throws a devastating haymaker aimed straight at the kid's head. The kid just casually tilts his head, letting the heavy punch whiff right past him. Furious that he missed, Kinju yells, asking what the hell is wrong with the suit guy. He starts spamming a crazy flurry of punches while asking if the little boy is too weak to even lift a finger. The crowd screams in absolute hype, demanding the big guy completely fold the kid and beat him until he logs out. In the middle of the cage, the giant just keeps spamming attacks, rushing the kid without a single cooldown. Watching the show from the VIP box next to Akari, Kuroki puffs his cigar and reads the fight completely differently than the casuals. The trader analyzes the match logically and realizes the kid is actually parrying the kinetic energy of the hits. With crazy high dexterity, Key uses his arms to redirect the giant's devastating punches away from his hitbox. Kuroki says, genuinely impressed, that the kid hasn't moved a single inch from his spawn point. Blowing out smoke, he turns to the student and asks if she thinks that little parlor trick is funny. The gang Harris just listens to the enemy's trash talk while keeping a ridiculously stoic face. The exec warns the princess that traditional martial arts are completely useless in an underground deathmatch. Down in the arena, our hero just keeps perfectly parrying the bald guy's endless barrage. Explains that in a no-rules server, the winner isn't decided by some flashy, technical parry. Putting all his stocks in his fighter, he claims the only meta here is pure, irrational, brute force aggression. Suddenly, the suit reaches out and grabs the girl's hand like an absolute creep. Chuckling, the traitor warns her that, after he wins the match, he's gonna have to teach her a lesson too. Rocking a terrifying look, the guy cruelly states that a tamed pet needs to know its boundaries. Kuroki keeps holding her hand, laughing at how pathetic the whole situation is. Out of nowhere, the girl whispers in an ice-cold voice, treating his entire villain monologue like it's a joke. Leaking pure rage from her eyes, Akari tells him she's disgusted he's trying to leash her, when he's literally just a lapdog for the garden. The emotional damage hits perfectly, wiping the smile right off the traitor's face and replacing it with pure hatred. He drops the girl's hand instantly and aggressively crushes his cigar into the ashtray. Furious about the disrespect, the exec screams at his fighter to stop playing with his food immediately. The massive fighter gets confused by his boss raging and has no clue why he's so mad. Capitalizing on that 1 microsecond of lag, Key silently steps in, stomping hard on the ring mat. The giant suddenly starts gasping for air, instantly hitting zero stamina out of nowhere. Right in front of him, the suit guy is completely spotless and gives him a chill smile. The champ is totally mind-blown that his stamina is drained when he was the only one throwing punches. Trolling the exhausted giant, our hero sarcastically asks if he really doesn't have the energy to lift a finger anymore. Kinju's eyes go wide in terror as the target suddenly teleports right into his face. In a blur, Ki unleashes a brutal strike straight into the heavy fighter's chest. Thanks to the massive critical hit, the mountain of muscle gets launched backward, completely knocked off his feet. The slam kicks up dirt in the arena, and the entire audience watches the massive body hit the floor. The gamblers are left with their jaws on the floor, totally frozen, having no idea what the heck just happened. One of the millionaires gulps hard, sweating bullets as the undefeated champion gets absolutely folded. The ref runs over to the downed fighter and starts the countdown while internally panicking. Rubbing his own neck, Kei figures the first step to taking down a boss is knocking its teeth out. Suddenly, both the announcer and our MC hear this super weird noise coming from the knocked out fighter. Kinju starts convulsing on the ground in a super gross way, making these awful sounds. The guy in the suit steps back a bit, watching the whole thing go down on high alert. Then, this kid in a hoodie spawns out of nowhere, planting his foot right on the downed giant's back. The ref is totally shocked by the random interference and has no idea what spawn point this guy came from. Casually chilling in the ring, Campanula ignores the guards and just leaks this dark, terrifying aura. The casino staff stare at the scene completely lost, having zero idea what the protocol is here. Without hesitating, the blonde kid aggressively attacks every single suit standing around him. He throws a devastating kick right into a guard's face, instantly sending him to sleep. Radiating absolute killer intent, the assassin steps over the knocked out NPCs and gets ready for the real massacre. Looking at the sleeping guards in the arena, Ki jokes that this casino has terrible customer service. Staring the blonde kid down, he immediately asks what the new guy thinks he's trying to pull here. Right then, Campanula warns that he only put the guards to sleep and demands to be the one who closes the curtains on this show. The young hitman takes a step forward, getting into his stance for the upcoming boss fight. He justifies it by saying they absolutely cannot let some random NPCs ruin their carefully planned script. Confused by the weird dialogue, our hero repeats the word script, trying to figure out what the lore is here. The blonde explains that if the suit guy wins the match, all the grinding they've done up to this point gets completely wiped. Holding his ground in the center of the ring, the two face off, ready to throw down no matter what. Flexing his confidence, the cleaner declares he'll do whatever it takes to permanently delete this fight from the records. He turns his head and asks Kuroki directly if the traitor gives him the green light to take over. Watching from the VIP box, the XX smiles and says he'll gladly outsource the work to his ally. Moving fast, the hoodie kid drops a sarcastic apology as he dashes forward at insane speeds. Using the momentum, he throws a lethal kick aimed right at the rival's throat. Our hero dodges the fatal strike, realizing the guy was going straight for the carotid artery. Analyzing the suit guy's movement, Campanula asks what kind of build he's running. The combat style in question is Silent, a super lethal, ancient defense system from Southeast Asia. Bringing absolute broken stats to close combat, there are hundreds of different skill trees for this art all over the world. The branches range from brutal hardcore moves focused entirely on bare-handed brawling, absolute savage techniques meant for using blades and snapping joints. Locked onto the target, our hero keeps his eyes peeled, waiting for the next attack animation. He drops into his fighting stance, flooding the entire arena with crazy pressure. The light-haired kid analyzes the enemy's stance, trying to read every single frame. In an explosion of speed, Ki throws a fast hand strike that gets casually blocked. Campanula backs up insanely fast, literally leaving afterimages because his movement speed is so broken. Without dropping a frame, the hitman counters hard, catching the suit guy off guard. Our hero ends up taking a graze to the face, and a tiny line of red drips down his cheek. Katajiri watches in shock, remembering that the kid tanked the giant's hits like nothing, but just got pushed back by a single hand. In the VIP lounge, Akari watches the fight go down while keeping a completely silent, unreadable poker face. Checking the enemy's stats, Ki realizes this kid's reaction time and strength are completely past the human level cap. Wiping the red off his face, he glares at the light-haired enemy and realizes a massive piece of lore. Cutting the small talk, the suit guy asks if the kid is also on the Funeral Flowers roster. The assassin drops a huge smile and jokes that rumors really do travel fast on this server. Putting it all on the table, he politely introduces himself as Campanula, the terrifying flower of gratitude. Clapping his hands together like a troll, the hitman says thanks for the chance to play a fun minigame after such a boring gig. Standing in the cage, our hero lets out a soft laugh, finding this whole setup super interesting. He wipes his cut cheek and promises the pleasure of this random encounter is all his. Flashing those scary glowing eyes, Key warns him that since he's in the syndicate, he won't have to hold back on destroying him. The Respawn Pro gets a quick flashback to all the brutal deathmatches he survived against other disposable members of that same guild. Staring at the enemy's dangerous stance, Kuroki starts sweating, realizing the vibe in the arena just got way worse. From the balcony, the Mafia boss and her partner watch the duel, hyper-focused on every word being dropped. Getting up slowly, our hero honestly admits he really doesn't want to tank another one of those palm strikes. On the other side, the blonde kid is totally chill, just rocking an arrogant smirk. Rawling his neck to crack it, the suit guy figures his first objective is to download the enemy's move set. The whole place goes dead silent, and the cleaner cruelly jokes that the stage audio just cut out. Trolling his rival, he asks if the noob ran out of combos and warns that if the suit guy doesn't push soon, he'll just close the gap himself and end this game once and for all. Our MC gets a jump scare from the crazy speed burst and tracks the kid's impossible dash. In a literal millisecond, the assassin throws a heavy punch aimed right at the enemy's face. Flexing his dodge mechanics, Key manages to avoid the hit by pivoting his torso out of the hitbox. Staying on ultra-high alert, the suit guy focuses entirely on reading the rival's next inputs. The blonde unleashes an absolute hurricane of heavy attacks, and our hero wonders what the heck is so glitchy about these strikes. Dodging the spam, he realizes that even though they're crazy fast, the punch trajectories are actually super predictable. Backstepping to dodge a nasty kick, our hero also notices the air pressure from the attacks makes them really easy to read. Comparing him to his old assassin coach, he figures the kid's moves are just bunga button mashing with high DPS. Campanula ignores his stamina bar and pushes again, throwing another violent strike with everything he's got. Exploiting the sloppy rhythm, the suit guy dodges and lands a clean hit right on the enemy's arm. The hoodie assassin's eyes go wide in absolute shock seeing his attack get stuffed like that. Having locked in his perfect defense, Kei fixes his posture to completely dominate the center of the ring. Watching from above, Katajiri actually jumps for joy, hyping up that their carry finally landed a hit. Backing off fast, Campanula checks his HP and realizes the suit guy perfectly struck his radial nerve. Smiling at the realization, the hitman figures out this is exactly how the muscle giant got his arm disabled a minute ago. The move is super similar to gunting, a tech that disarms limbs like a pair of scissors snapping shut. Hyped up, the blonde notes that the guy used his knuckles for a critical hit and asks if that's the legendary death method. Our hero flashes a sarcastic smile, asking if he actually knows the lore and if the tech got mainstream nowadays. This assassin art is a literal execution system from Indonesia, treated as forbidden tech that should have stayed buried in old scrolls. Oozing confidence, Key states the system obviously isn't public knowledge, since the last guy who used it logged out 11 years ago. Totally ignoring the history lesson, Campanula screams and rushes the enemy again with everything in his tank. The young hitman throws a lightning-fast attack trying to turn the tide in the close quarters duel. With zero effort, our hero parries the aggro, using the back of his hand to just deflect the punch's trajectory. The guy in the baggy clothes is completely floored watching his attack get nullified without the guy even breaking a sweat. But instead of getting scared, the blonde drops a psycho smile, saying the rival is super interesting and he wants to see more. Key clicks his tongue in annoyance and just keeps parrying the endless button, mashing. The assassin cranks the violence up to 11, dropping a crushing combo that pushes the suit guy backward. Even while getting rushed by the angry flurry of punches, our MC stays completely untouched, perfectly dodging every single frame. Super salty about it, Campanula yells that this makes no sense and can't figure out how the guy is dodging so easily. To read the attacks, our hero is tracking the enemy's micro movements, looking at his center of gravity and where his eyes point. Using that pro-level game sense, he can predict the next attack way before the animation even finishes. Without that skill, it'd be impossible to counter a flurry of strikes that last less than a second. But the light-haired assassin gets annoyed, noticing the suit guy is dodging after the punches have already been thrown. Completely baffled, the criminal realizes the enemy's reaction speed is literally past the human limit. Using the momentum, Key dodges a devastating rush by jumping backwards super fast. While he's still stuck in the air, the kid is amazed to see a blur heading straight for him. Acting fast, Campanula drops a massive palm strike right on the defenseless enemy. Thanks to the crushing hit, our hero gets launched across the map, sliding across the cage floor. Stressed about the hit, Katajiri screams his partner's name, terrified that he just got wiped out. Watching from the VIP box, the Mafia Harris is absolutely shocked by the insane knockback of the enemy's attack. Right then, the traitor puts his arm in front of the girl's face to block her view. Flexing his ego, Kuroki tells her that this is real violence and guarantees he's taking the W. Dropping a dark laugh, the criminal trolls her, saying that on the streets the winner literally takes all the loot. Knocked down in the cage, our MC just turns his head to the crowd and mentions that it takes serious guts to act like such a coward. The traitor threatens the girl, warning her that after the fight, he's gonna collect a way bigger payout than what's on the table. Tuning out the trash talk, the young guy in the suit gets up slowly, planting his feet firmly on the cage floor. Showing zero signs of taking real damage, he gets back into his stance, locking eyes with the rival in the center. Dusting off his fit, Kai reviews the combo and confidently states he just cracked the code on the enemy's broken buff. Staying totally chill, the respawned kid just mutters to himself, finally figuring out the glitch behind those absurd stats. On the other side, the hoodie-wearing assassin drops a smug smile, waiting for the enemy to drop his review. Super hyped, Campanula throws his hands up, celebrating that the suit guy actually got it right by calling him special. The assassin brags that his nervous system got heavily modded using some sketchy stem cell experiments. The body mods gave him way thicker axons, meaning his nerves can tank damage in an unbelievable way. Listening to the lore drop, our hero understands that his impossible reaction speed comes from those modded wires. The kid explains that normal players need 0.2 seconds to react to stuff, no matter how much they grind. Completely trolling, the criminal flexes that he can react in 0.02 seconds, literally like a cat. Because of that broken genetic buff, the kid's perception of time basically feels like it's paused. To the assassin, it feels like reality is rendering frame by frame right in front of him. Based on that, Kay realizes that Massive Palm Strike also relied on his broken sense of his own body mechanics. Up in the VIP area, the boss and the Harris listen to the whole biology lesson in complete, stunned silence. Resting his face in his hands, the traitor stares at the cage, thinking that medical theory sounds incredibly useful. Inside the arena, the blonde kid claims he can feel every single muscle fiber, letting him focus all his DPS into one single point. Using an ironic tone, he tries to remember the name of the Chinese Fa Jin strike, claiming using it is as easy as breathing. The assassin makes fun of his older teammates, who grind super hard in training but are still hard, stuck at normal human levels. To the genetically modded kid, those old ladies trying their best is just a hilarious, pathetic joke. Agreeing with the rival's logic, Key smiles and asks if those modded eyes give him a headache in daily life. The totally random question about real-life stuff catches the assassin completely off guard. The suit guy asks how he even watches movies, since the standard frame rate must look like a laggy cartoon to him. His face dropping instantly, the bad guy annoyedly admits that the ID buff is actually super annoying. Standing totally relaxed in the middle of the cage, our hero declares that if that's his entire move pool, the game is over. Cracking his neck to the side, the Respond Pro agrees it's time to permanently close the lobby. Radiating this feral red aura, the kid promises to give the rival an unforgettable game over screen. Taking the Panula unleashes a massive purple aura, saying he can't wait to watch the final cutscene. A highly toxic vibe takes over the hidden casino as the two ridiculously OP fighters lock eyes for the final clash. Staring at the fenced-in area, the VIPs upstairs keep their eyes peeled, waiting for the next move. Staring down his rival without blinking, Key is fully aware that this blonde kid's reaction times are literally cheating. He totally gets that any standard frontal attack will just get perfectly parried by the enemy's speed. With basically no other options, the sharp-dressed kid figures there's only one route to pull off a W in this arena. The big brain play is to find a gap and land a devastating counter exactly when the opponent goes for the attack. But the baggy-clothed villain flashes a demonic smile, totally convinced he already downloaded the rival's entire strat. The assassin figures our hero got too cocky after managing to land that nerve strike on his arm earlier. Flashing a crazy look, Campanula admits to himself he actually let that hit connect on purpose, just to give the guy false hope. Bursting with ego, the blonde kid is 100% sure he can counter even the Respond kid's defensive parries. With a violent dash, he aggressively pushes, throwing heavy hits right at the suit guy's chest. Caught lacking by the speed, the well-dressed kid shuts his eyes, feeling the heavy blow rattle his entire frame. Thinking the matchup is too easy, the assassin believes any desperate counter from the enemy is already written in his death script. Strolling casually through the ring, the criminal enjoys the idea of completely shattering this pathetic, Pre's last bit of hope. Geared up for the final push, the hoodie assassin sets up to drop his most lethal strike straight on the target. Breathing heavily, our hero drops his head, looking like he's completely trapped by this biological freak. Sprinting at max speed, the blonde yells, daring the enemy to try and counter, promising it'll instantly send him to the lobby. Keeping totally calm, Key looks up, watching the rival's blind rage walk right into his fatal trap. Suddenly, the blue eyes of the hitman go completely wide with confusion as he realizes the suit guy hasn't moved an inch. Suspended in the air, Campanula realizes that in this tiny gap, it's physically impossible for the target to launch a counterattack. Blindly trusting his own hype, the garden's kid decides in his head that the match is already won. Using an insanely subtle shift, our hero leans his body just slightly to the side, perfectly dodging the fatal hitbox. A weird sound echoes through the ring, and the criminal lets out a pained noise, feeling like something has gone horribly wrong. What actually happened is the Respawn kid's flawless counter had already been triggered in silence, totally bypassing the enemy's super reflexes. It turns out the kid's broken reaction speed only works against threats he can actually process visually. Back when he got launched into the air by that palm strike, Key used that tiny airborne window to set up his trap. In that millisecond of hang time, the suit guy quickly positioned his hand without triggering any danger alerts for the opponent. With pixel-perfect accuracy, the tip of his finger lightly touched right in the middle of the assassin's forehead. That creepy little tap triggered an ancient fatal technique from the Indonesian school called the Venom Needle. The tech requires hitting the facial trigeminal nerve with max power, causing a fatal lag spike in the target's perception. Frozen in the middle of the cage, Campanula's eyes go wide as he feels his controller disconnect, realizing his game is finally over. Radiating this massive, dark energy, our hero sarcastically asks how the enemy liked the graphics on that finishing move. Right after that, the light-haired hitman's body gets violently blasted backward by the invisible impact. Completely stripped of his defenses, the hoodie kid just goes flying uncontrollably through the air. The knockback is so massive he violently drags across the entire arena floor. Experiencing absolute agonizing pain, the assassin coughs up a ton of red liquid while trying to process what the heck happened. Because the impact was so insane, Campanula slams back, first right into the cage glass, completely shattering it. Watching the whole thing from the upper floors, the Harris and Katagiri are absolutely shocked by the crazy plot twist. Folded on the floor surrounded by dust, the criminal stutters in panic, desperate to know what move the rival used. Completely peaceful in the center of the arena, Kay coldly states that he barely even touched the kid. The truth is, the kid wasn't capping at all, since he really never threw a frontal attack. In that tiny fraction of a second, the Respawn pro flexed his legs and hips, instantly locking his back and core muscles. With his stance locked in, he pushed his shoulder blades and wrists forward, basically turning himself into a solid meat shield. This form works exactly like a weightlifter holding heavy plates over their head, locking the entire body in place. For that split second, a person becomes a pillar capable of tanking tons of weight, and the suit guy pulled off that exact glitch. Planting his feet on the cage mat, Key turned into a solid column rooted to the ground and just waited without moving. Basically, our hero tanked the entire hit, using the top of the pillar he created just by changing his stance. Thanks to Newton's law, the trapped energy had nowhere to go and ended up bouncing straight back into the blonde kid's body. The fatal result was exactly like if Campanula had sprinted at max speed headfirst into a steel spike planted in the ground. This unbelievable parry is the absolute peak of ancient Chinese martial arts, known as stealing the opponent's energy for an attack. After that brutal clash, the hyper-focused kid just watches his shattered rival at the edge of the cage. Squished against the broken glass, the hitman finally realizes the rival used his own DPS against him. The hitman's brain runs the numbers, and he realizes that whole biology podcast earlier was just a massive bait. Being totally honest, Key admits he was just stalling for time until the drug debuff hit its max stack. Taking the L, the hoodie kid praises the strat, admitting he never thought someone could actually ruin his perfect speedrun. Leaking a ton of red, he casually mentions that every cleaner eventually ends up on the chopping block sooner or later. Staring up at the ceiling, the kid knows that carrying the Campanula tag meant his time to drop was bound to happen. Right then, the assassin coughs up another huge puddle of dark blood and genuinely thanks the rival. The bad guy explains that his whole life, he thought the underground world was just a boring, gray server. Looking at the fake plants hanging around the ring, he mutters that, thanks to the suit guy, logging out actually felt kind of fun. Having that super peaceful final thought, the genetically modded kid gives in his massive HP loss and checks out for good in the arena. Turning his back on the sleeper, the Respawn Pro tells the kid to rest in as much peace as he can manage. Suddenly, a panicked scream echoes through the casino yelling the traitor's name, instantly putting Ki back on high alert. Up on the balcony, Katagiri is completely consumed by terror looking at an impossible scene. Taking advantage of everyone watching the ring, Kuroki snuck up and put the Harris in a vicious chokehold from behind. Sweating buckets of fear, the coward points the barrel of his piece right at Akari's head in front of the whole lobby. Seeing his teammate get taken hostage, our MC radiates pure, unfiltered rage, getting ready to hand out a real beatdown.